Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unfeigned the podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to say thank you. I am extremely thankful. I'm extremely grateful for anyone that listens to this podcast. And I just appreciate y'all so much. I'm honored that I even get the opportunity to share my story and that it would encourage or help even one person. That is a bit overwhelming. And I just appreciate y'all. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful. So thank y'all for listening. And I hope that you'll stay along with me on this journey. And I want to connect. I say this every podcast, but I want to connect. It's true. I really want to connect with y'all. Email me, unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com. Send me a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and let's connect. And I want to share a bit of an announcement. Okay, maybe it's a teaser announcement, but God has been doing some things in my life with this podcast, and He's giving me some opportunities for things, and I'm excited about them. And so some things are coming up that I'm really excited about that are going to be big, and it involves it's around this idea of connection and helping people. And so some things have been happening. And I'll announce more of them maybe on some other episodes, but just be looking out for some big news, some announcements. But I want to connect with y'all. And so email me, send me a DM, and let's connect. All right. So on today's episode, I want to talk about a concept that was brought up to me. There were questions that were asked, but I guess a question that was asked to me. And I was having this conversation with a friend. And I'm not sure that I remember much of the conversation leading up to this, but I was having a conversation with a friend. She started to ask me about triggers, right? And, I talk a lot about healing and being healed from things. And in conversation, she was bringing up the idea of, like, because I'm healed, do I ever think that I'll do what I used to do, right? Do I ever think that I'll go back to being who I used to be? When these things come up, am I ever worried or scared or nervous or whatever? Or do I ever think about that a situation come up and I'll act the way I used to act? And it was awesome. I love conversation. I love questions that really cause you to dive in and figure out stuff. All right, and that's intelligent conversations, because an intelligent conversation has nothing to do with being right or winning. That's actually an unintelligent conversation. But it's not about winning. It's not about being right. It's not about trying to change the other person's mind or to convince them that you're right and that they should believe you. That's unintelligent. An intelligent conversation might involve differences of opinions. I may think something, you may think something, and as we communicate about it and talk about it, we're actually learning the reasons. We're learning the quote-unquote whys behind what we believe and what we think. And changes of opinions and mindset changes, that could happen, but it could not also. But that's not the goal. The goal is to grow and learn from each other. And, excuse me, and examine yourself, really examine your whys, examine your reasons to solidify what you believe or challenge what you believe. And maybe you are grounded after an intelligent conversation, or maybe you start to consider, well, maybe I'm a bit off on this, right? And so that's an intelligent conversation. I appreciate this friend of mine. We have some really good deep conversations, some really good intelligent conversations, and I love it because she challenges me to think about the things that I say, because I say a lot. And so she challenges me to think about those, to examine and evaluate the things that I say, not in a way where she's saying, hey, I don't think that's right, or do you really, but more, I think, at least this is how it comes across, is more, I think it's learning and growing. She wants to know, right? And in the process, it's challenged me, right? Because now I have to give a reason. And so I love it. And I hope I do the same thing for her. But so we got on this idea of triggers. And so I started to think, like, I'm going to use some examples in this episode that, excuse me, that I'm going to, at the risk of being controversial, I'm going to use these examples. And so I need to ask permission of y'all for a second. I need to ask for your permission for me to share what I'm feeling, right? And I guess you could not give me permission, and I mean, just you could shut down this podcast. Just click off of it. Don't listen. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But I'm asking you to give me permission to share what's on my heart about this. But I'm also asking you to give you permission. I'm asking you to give yourself permission to enter into an intelligent conversation and consider what I'm saying and just enter into this communication with me. So I appreciate if you do both of those. That would be awesome. So I started to think about this idea of triggers, and I'm going to say this, then I'll unpack it. But I think we have abused the word trigger. I think we misuse the word trigger. I think we've perverted the word triggers, and it's thrown around like a buzzword, like most things become. Like there's a lot of things that become buzzwords that we throw around, and we kind of just fit these buzzwords into our context, right? However it suits us. Not all the time, but there's a lot of that happens. And I think a lot of times trigger, or the word trigger, or triggers, is a buzzword. Now, unfortunately, what happens a lot of times, and this is what I am asking us to enter into an intelligent conversation, because a lot of times in conversation, what happens is one person assumes that once this other person says something, the one listening assumes, well, they must mean this about the other thing, right? So let's say, this is going to be a silly example, but I'm just trying to prove a point. So let's say I'm eating, somebody makes me food. Let's say they make me pizza. I don't know. Or cheeseburger. They give me this cheeseburger and I'm like, man, I really love this cheeseburger. No, maybe that's not a good example. Okay, here we go. How about somebody walks out and I'm like, wow, you look really good today. And in their mind, they think, oh, so I didn't look good any other day? Right? So that's assuming. That's an assumption based on what I said. You assumed I meant something about the opposite. And unfortunately, that happens too often in relationships. But when I say that the word trigger is a buzzword, triggers is a buzzword, some of you probably already let this thought creep into your mind and infect your mind, where you think, oh, I must think that triggers aren't legit. People don't have triggers. It doesn't affect people. It's not a real thing. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is I think it's a buzzword. I think it's been abused, and I think we've misused it inappropriately. But I absolutely believe that people are, quote unquote, triggered by stuff. A trigger just means it generates some sort of response, right? It triggers a response from us or from something, right? And so obviously there are, quote unquote, triggers in life, in the world, of course, right? And it doesn't always have to be bad either. There are things that trigger good responses and emotions and behaviors, just like the bad. But there's also things that aren't necessarily concerning our emotions at all, right? If I flip a light switch, it triggers that light to come on. Okay, so all I'm saying is that you cannot make an argument based on the outliers and the exceptions, right? So you have to make an argument based on what's generally true for reasonably everyone. Okay. So basically, what's basically true for everybody, generally true for everybody, that's how you have to build an argument, because there's always exceptions and outliers, and those have different rules. And I believe, I agree, yes, I think that people are triggered by things, and people are set off by things, and these emotions are set off by certain actions. And but I think we abuse that word, and here's how. When we think of triggers, we think Well, this is what's supposed to happen, right? This is how we're supposed to act. Have you ever heard anybody say, like, you ever say, like, hey, why do you do that way? And they're like, I don't know, this is just how I've always done it. Or you ask somebody in a business setting, whatever, and you're like, why is this being done this way? And they're like, I don't know, it's just always been done this way. We hear that a lot. And it's unfortunate because it's silly. Because that means you have now eliminated the evaluation of the reason why you're doing it. How do you know there's not a better way? Right? If you're simply doing it because that's how it's always been done, then you're really not even evaluating what's being done and how it's always been done. You're just doing it. You're just a robot. And so I feel like when we talk about this, the way we abuse it is because trigger, oh, we're supposed to act a certain way. And I just don't think that's the case. So I'm gonna attack two things here. So one of the questions was like, how do I think that like how do I still think about like triggers? Do they still come up? Am I still affected by that? And then do I ever think I'll act the way I used to? Okay, so I think that we do way too much, all too often, things that we are quote unquote supposed to do. There are things in our lives that come up that cause a certain emotion in us, cause a certain feeling in us, a behavior, an action, a mindset, whatever it is. And if we believe this lie that things are supposed to happen this way, then we behave accordingly. Okay, so for instance, let's say that you don't get your way, right? Let's say that you really want something and you don't get it, and it could be anything. I'm not just talking about like a toy, but let's just say you're really hoping for something and you don't get it. Well, we're conditioned to believe that that's supposed to be bad, and so we act accordingly. Depression, sadness, Eeyore mentality, like the woe is me, worst case scenario, pessimistic. And so because it's supposed to be bad, and so we're supposed to feel this way about that. And I know that's not the best example, but how about this? How about a death in the family, right? And a death in the family is extremely tragic. It is extremely sad and can be very depressing and grief stricken, and all of those things are real. All of those things are felt by someone, and they're all legit. Okay. But what if we're told we're supposed to feel a certain way, or supposed to act a certain way, or supposed to be a certain way? Now, don't get me wrong, because yes, if when my dad died, I didn't just be like, oh, okay. No, it hit me. Right. And I get it. That's all real. Okay. But for the rest of my life, if I'm told I'm supposed to still feel a certain way about that, I I just can't accept that. I have to challenge that. Because am I supposed to feel the same way I did on the day he died, today? Like, am I supposed to feel that same way? What about a family member that you don't even know? What happens if somebody in your family dies and you're told they died and you didn't even know you didn't even know them? You barely knew they were your family. And you have family members that are the same, like had no interaction, they just knew them at one point or whatever, and they're acting like it was the closest member of their family, and like, are you supposed to feel this? Like, you know? And so I have always been someone that challenged the quote unquote supposed tos, right? Well, this is how it's supposed to be. Well, I don't think so. Let's explore another way. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I would like to at least challenge it and investigate it, and then come to a smart decision, right? My own conclusion, right? After I've explored it, and I've always been that way. And I just think that we are told that we are supposed to be a certain way and supposed to think a certain way, and that's how we act in our own brokenness. We often and easily can get this woe is me Eeyore mentality because Well, it's supposed to be this way. That's how we're supposed to act. That's how we're supposed to respond to trauma. That's how we're supposed to respond to real crappy circumstances. And it infects relationships as well, not just our personal life, right? In our personal life, we can look at all the circumstances surrounding us, and if they're bad, and I've been through some shit. I've been through it, right? And I haven't even, and there's people way far worse than I was. I get that. And so there's things, right? You can look at your circumstances and be like, man, this is really bad, right? And do we say, well, we're supposed to be sad? We're supposed to be depressed, right? You hear people when they talk to people that have come out of or that are in situations, you hear people often say, man, I don't know how you are still smiling, or I don't know how you're acting this way. Like, or man, if I were you, I would totally be like this. I don't know how you're. Well, it's because we believe that you're supposed to be a certain way or do a certain thing. And I've just never been like that. And it happens far too often, and it infects our relationships. It could be, a romantic relationship, a platonic relationship, whatever it is, a business relationship, but it infects our relationships because have you ever heard things like, well, that's just how they are. That's just how she is. That's just how he is. That's just how they are. Oh, yeah. Like he gets like that. She gets like that. Or how about, yeah, we just let them do their thing. We let them throw their tantrum. We let them, whatever, be by themselves, just leave them be, whatever, and then they'll be okay. Right? And so we buy into this concept that things are supposed to be the way they are, and we behave accordingly. Well, I want to challenge that, and I want to challenge y'all to think differently. And so when I was asked if triggers, quote unquote triggers, still come up, of course they do. Of course they do. Triggers aren't a thing. Now hear me what I'm saying, because some of you probably, I don't know, probably felt a certain way when I said that. But triggers are not a quote unquote thing. We make it a thing. It's legit and it's real. So it's a thing, but it's not a thing, if you know what I'm saying. Okay? It's not something that is specifically categorized and, oh my God, this is just, no, they're always there. It's life. It's called life. Life will always life. Life is always lifing. It never stops lifing. And so there's always going to be things that come up in life. And since each person is unique and different, we respond differently to different things that life. Now, the buzzword we use is called triggers, right? But that's just a natural action. Something happens and a response happens. It triggers something, right? We've, I think, unfortunately, all too often, we've associated this word with trauma and, and brokenness. And so you hear it a lot, like, that's a trigger for me. Well, it's a trigger for a lot of people. It's just a trigger. It's just lifing. But when this happens, we're quote unquote supposed to be a certain way. We're supposed to act a certain way. So in relationships, if you do something that I don't like or that makes me mad, or maybe we've had a bad experience in the past with it and we're healing from it or whatever, and that comes up, you talk a certain way or you do a certain thing, I'm going to say that's triggering for me. And so what does that, what do I mean by saying that? Like, so, okay, thank you. So like, what I'm saying is, and don't get me twisted here. Like I'm not being insensitive, because I'm not dismissing any of the actual feelings and effects and all of the things that are involved. I'm not dismissing any of that because that's all real. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But what I am saying is, why are we accepting just what's supposed to happen? Why are we behaving like that still? Why are we not challenging it? Because maybe there's a different way we can act. And so you say something, do something, whatever, and I'm like, that's triggering for me. And what do? We automatically behave a certain way. So we don't talk about it. We don't communicate about it because it's quote unquote triggering for you or for me. And all that happens is because that's what's supposed to happen in that situation is we're supposed to leave it be. We're supposed to just let it heal by osmosis, right? So we don't ever dive into it. And more often than not, it never gets healed. It just gets pushed to the side, it just gets left alone, but it always comes back. And so it's not the fact that triggers will be here or they'll disappear. There is no option of triggers disappearing. It's called life, and life will always life. And as it's lifing, you will experience things. You'll be confronted with things. So that's not the issue. The issue isn't whether or not, as you heal from things, will you still be triggered? No, that's up to you. I say this a lot. And I know a lot of people might think it's oversimplified, but it's really not. But it's up to you. There is tremendous power in your choice, in what you choose. There's tremendous power in your words. There's tremendous power in the choice. I mean, the choice is first because you always choose and then something happens. So there's tremendous power in what you choose. And you can choose to be triggered. You can choose to be offended. No one can offend me. I don't get offended. Why not? Because it's up to me. You can't do that to me. No one can offend me. I can get offended, but that's my choice. But you can't offend me. You can't make me feel that way. Just like you can't trigger me. I cannot be triggered unless I allow myself to be triggered. Hear me what I'm saying, because this is important. That does not mean that I won't feel things swelling up inside of me. Okay? And that's why I say we've abused the word. We've misused the word inappropriately. The buzzword now, trigger. Because what we say is triggering, that's our action, right? When in fact, the trigger is just what conjures it up inside, the way you feel. When you feel that thing swelling up inside you, that's the trigger, right? Something happens and that's what happens to your body. But we've said that when we say that's triggering to me or that's a trigger, we equate that with how we're going to behave. Like if you continue to do this, how I'm going to behave because it's a trigger. No. When I said something that made you feel a certain way, that was the trigger. The trigger was what happened, and then you felt something inside. But now it's up to you. You don't have to behave accordingly. And maybe that should be our vernacular, right? Maybe that should be how we talk. Maybe we should say, man, I'm feeling triggered and I feel like behaving accordingly. Or I'm feeling triggered, but I know I don't have to behave accordingly. Maybe that all should be connected, and we just tend to leave out that last part because being triggered suits our agenda. And this is super involved, right? Like there's so much to unpack here. Because when something does make us feel those kinds of ways, it could be painful to step into those and talk about it and dive in and sit in that stuff and really, really be refined in the fire with all those. And it's just more comfortable not to, so we just leave it alone. We say we're triggered, we leave it alone. And so, yes, it will always life. But I don't ever have to do something just because someone says I'm supposed to. You don't ever have to do something just because someone says you're supposed to. We don't ever have to be okay with someone being a certain way because, well, that's just what's supposed to happen. That's just how he gets. That's just how she gets. This is how they get in this situation. Well, don't be okay with that. Because that's broken and it leads to more brokenness on top of brokenness. And until we are ready to say, I love you enough that I'm going to, I want to step into this with you. I love you enough that I'm going to endure the pain that it's going to feel like. The hurt, all the things. I love you enough that I'm not just going to let it supposed to be this way. I think it's funny because and I mentioned this on a previous episode probably about the honeymoon stage in relationships. And, I mean, our whole world believes this lie. And I think it's crazy, honestly. And I'm saying that because I've discovered it. I've discovered that, and what I mean by that is I've discovered that it's been a lie. Even if it's in theory, all the evidence points to the theory being true. It points to it being truth. And side note, I'll get back to this, but side note, have you ever got into something or discovered something or learned something, whatever, and you just, you dive into it more and more and more, and you explore it more and more and more, and you investigate it more and more and more. And then at some point, like something clicks and you just believe it in your soul and it becomes truth to you. And then you are so grounded in that no matter what anybody says or no matter what happens or what anybody does, they can't sway you from the truth because that's become truth to you. Well, I joked with a friend of mine about being a mad scientist sometimes because I feel like I've discovered something. I feel like it goes against, everything we've ever been told. I feel like it's not common. It's the unpopular opinion, but I feel like I've discovered something and I investigated. I dove in and I unpacked it and I believed in it in my soul and it's become truth to me. And it's this idea of power of choice. And it doesn't matter what anybody says or anybody does. Not that I'm not going to listen. But it becomes so difficult to be swayed from the truth, really because of all the evidence that's true. And so this honeymoon stage, our world for, I don't even know how long, way before me probably, has spewed this lie out that there's a honeymoon stage in a relationship. They've coined that term and everybody knows what it means. That there's a honeymoon stage in a relationship, and that's the first lie, and that honeymoon stage, quote unquote, will end. That there's a duration, a period of time designated for the honeymoon stage, and it'll wear off. We hear that all the time, that phrase, oh, the honeymoon stage wore off. I think those are lies. There's not a honeymoon stage. And since there's not a honeymoon stage, there's nothing to wear off. It can never wear off. I think what happens is this infected, perverted mentality that things are supposed to happen. Things are supposed to be that way. We're supposed to say or do or behave in certain ways. That creeps in there and it starts to infiltrate every area of the relationship and infect every area of the relationship. Before you know it, your choices, the choices you're making, has caused breaks in your relationship until the whole thing is broken. And now you don't know what to do. And when you're asked, how did it get here? Or you talk about the stage of your relationship, we often say, well, the honeymoon stage, after the honeymoon stage wore off, things like that. And I just don't think that's a thing. I don't think that we should accept believing that things are supposed to be a certain way. I think we should challenge it. And I've done that over my life. I've done that a lot over my life. And I want to tell a quick story. More like a general idea, but obviously, based on the situation, right? My ex-wife and I obviously were divorced. So we didn't do everything right. Okay. We did a lot of things wrong. However, we did a lot of things right. Okay. And regardless of where her and I are at with each other or how we are, what the circumstances, regardless of that, she's still the mother of my kids. And I'll always love her for that. Okay. I feel so terrible. I carry around so much guilt. I feel terrible because she got the broken version of me. And I wish with everything that I am, that she would have gotten the healed version of me. And I feel terrible that she got the broken version. And so we did a lot of things wrong, but we did a lot of things right. And one of those things were our kids. And I say this a lot, that I'm blessed to have the kids I do, that I'm fortunate, but I also have to recognize that my ex-wife and I had something to do with that. God gave us these children. He allowed us to raise these children. And we didn't do everything right. We made a lot of mistakes and we messed up a lot. But we did some really good things. And a lot of the way that we raised our kids, and I'm so thankful, I'm grateful that she was like this, because so was I. And we didn't agree on everything, you know, but there were a lot of things we agreed on when it came to raising our kids. And one of those things is we didn't just accept that things are supposed to be the way they are, right? That things are supposed to happen a certain way, or we're supposed to do this and that. One of a very specific instance is, you know, how you ever hear people say, oh, they fight like brother and sister, or yeah, they're siblings, they're going to do that. We never accepted that, because no, who told you that? Who told you they were supposed to do that? Who told you siblings are supposed to fight with each other? Now, don't get it twisted. Again, I'm not saying siblings won't fight. Like, our brothers and sisters and brothers and our siblings going to fight? Well, yeah, they are, because we're sinful. We're human. We're selfish. I get it. But it's the idea behind it, where everybody accepts, oh, they're siblings, they're going to do that. Or, yeah, they fight like brothers. No, who told you that? Because whoever did lied to you. And my ex-wife and I would challenge that a lot, especially with family members, right? And we tried to raise our kids to see their siblings, to hear their siblings, to love their siblings, to be there for their siblings, to not accept that they're just gonna fight, but understand that there's gonna be times that they fight. And even in that, there is a way to reconcile and make it right. And the evidence points to my ex-wife and I doing something right with our kids. Do they make mistakes and mess up? Hell yeah. Just like everybody, we're human. We're sinful. But the evidence points to my ex-wife and I doing the right thing by challenging this quote unquote supposed to mindset. So y'all, when I thought about that other part that my friend asked me about, do I ever think like I'll act that way that I used to? No. A lot of people say, well, you can't tell the future, you don't know. Yeah, I do. I do know. I do know, because before, in my brokenness, the way I would respond to a quote unquote so-called trigger, right? Basically just lifing, the way that I would respond to that in the past was out of my brokenness. And I did believe a lot, like I was supposed to be this way. I was supposed to act this way. I was supposed to think this way. And my behavior, I behaved accordingly. And this may be hard for some of you to understand, but when you're in this position, when you're completely broken, this doesn't sound crazy at all. I didn't realize the choice that I had. I didn't understand the choice I had. I wasn't able to grasp the choice that I had. And so I behaved accordingly because of the broken belief system I had, mindset that I had, and my inner critic would start to speak to me. And because of my broken mindset, I would behave accordingly. When I started to walk into my healing, when I started to step into my healing, and as I speak to you today, life is still lifing, man. And God, life has lifed a lot. Sometimes I sit here and I'm like, man, this is getting old, right? And I do believe I'm built for this. Not everybody is. Not everybody is built for this. Not everybody can handle things. Not everybody can take things. And there's people that can handle way more than I can. I get it. But I often say that I'm built for this, that God designed me for this. And in the same breath, I'm sitting there like, okay, but this is getting old, right? But life has lifed, man. And it's still lifing. But the difference is now I see the choice. I could still choose to act wrong. I could still choose the wrong way. But I see the choice. I realize the choice I have. I understand the choice I have. I know that I can just choose the right way. I understand the power that's in my choice. And so I don't have to do anything just because it's supposed to be that way. And so as life lifes, and there are these quote unquote triggers that pop up, because they do very often. I don't have to behave accordingly. Not accordingly to my brokenness. According to my brokenness, I do behave accordingly to my healing. And so as I realize these choices I have and I recognize the power in this choice, I now have the ability to choose the right way. And so I do. And so, yes, I can say that should God give me another chance to be a husband, I can say, I guarantee 100% that I will be a certain way, that we will be a certain way, that marriage will, the passion will last forever. The quote unquote honeymoon stage that doesn't even really exist, that will just be our relationship. I will never fall out of love. I will never not be attracted. I will never this. I will never that. I will always this. Because it's up to me. Now, obviously there's another person involved. And so, there's that dynamic, and they would have to be the same thing. Like, we'd have to be on the same page with all this stuff. But if you're just asking me, and with the understanding of both parties doing the same thing, we will never fall out of love. We will never fall out of passion. There won't even be a honeymoon stage. It'll just be called our relationship. It will be the perfect relationship. Don't get it twisted to think that there won't be things that come up. Obviously, that's called life. But it will be the perfect relationship. There won't be a growing apart. There won't be a lack of communication. There won't be brokenness around sex and money and conflict. There won't be toxicity. There's not going to be toxic. And you know why I can say that? Because it's up to me. I choose that. And I choose it every day and every moment. And so it's impossible for all this other brokenness to infect that. So y'all, I just want to challenge us all. I want to continue to keep this challenge in front of us. And hear me when I say that I'm not being insensitive, and I'm not being arrogant. I don't view myself like that. I'm sure as hell not better than anybody. I think God has allowed me to go through some things in my life that He's allowed me to go through so that judgment would be non-existent. And so I don't hold myself higher than anyone. But I do know what I've seen. I do know what I've experienced. I do know that I was broken and now I'm healed. I do know how I got from brokenness to healing. And I do know that I can help others do the same thing. And so I will speak with passion about that because my heart breaks for us. And I want people to experience the same kind of healing that I've experienced in their own lives and in their relationships. And I know I can do it. And so I speak confidently in that and with passion. Not because while I did this, my healing journey, while I went from brokenness to healing, was done by myself. It's only because God has done it. I did it by myself, but I didn't do it by myself. I hope you catch what I'm saying. God walked me through it. And so I speak with confidence in that because I know where I was and where I'm at, and I remember all of the stuff to get there. I remember who got me there, who got me through it, who walked me through it. That was God. But like I said, He built me for this. And so I still had to do it. I still had to go to hell and back. And I did, and I want to help y'all. If you are experiencing anything like this, like brokenness in your own life, in your relationships, I don't know everything, but I know some things, and I know that I can help you. But y'all, thank you for coming along with me on this journey. I really do appreciate y'all. I can't say it enough. I'm just so thankful. I'm so grateful. It's still mind-blowing, this whole podcast thing. It's still mind-blowing because I prayed for the podcast, and I prayed for an outlet to share my story, and so that people might be like, man, that I really resonate with that, or I love that, or, that was cool. Thanks for sharing, like entertainment. I don't know if I expected that it would turn into what it's become, like actually helping people. And me being given opportunities to actually connect with people to help them in certain things. I don't know if I expected that. So it's mind-blowing because I'm still, it's humbling. It really is. I'm just grateful that I can share my story, but I'm so grateful and so thankful that y'all listen and that God giving me opportunities to speak into people's lives. And I want it more, right? My heart breaks for this kind of stuff. And I love the healing that I've experienced, and I love helping people experience it, and I want to do more of it. So thank you all. Spread the word, share this podcast. Again, connect with me, unfeignedpodcast@gmail.com. Send me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And also remember, look out for some big, exciting news coming up soon. Thank you all.